Hello, my name is Ben,
And I'm Paul.
and we are the hosts of the Too Vague podcast this week. We are talking about the word virtual. Yes, Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Do people say that anymore? I don't think they do.
About as much as loosey-goosey.
Loosey-goosey. Yes, the word is virtual. Paul, what sort of exposure to... Well, let's start with the word virtual. What do you think of when you think of the word virtual first?
Well, two different directions, definitely. The first would be something that represents reality or something that exists but actually doesn't. He was virtually the only one there. Like, it doesn't have to actually be the exact meaning as well. That could be another way of looking at virtual. And then the other would be just looking at it like virtues,
Right,
your
right.
morals, or however you define yourself.
Those are two things that you think about.
Yep.
That makes sense. There's a virtual, like virtuous. And then also, I think the more common definition of virtual these days is computer related.
Sure.
But it is derived from actually, it's very interesting. It's kind of derived from the same Latin root, both virtuous and virtual, even though the definitions are completely different. Another interesting thing, so derived from virtus, the Latin, and virtuous, late Latin, combined into medieval Latin, which is virtualis. Let's say that again, virtualis, which is medieval Latin. What's interesting, I think, about when you look at the two words that we use today, virtuous and virtual, the use of the word virtual has climbed, was pretty low for a while. And then in the computer age, in the 90s, is when it started taking off as far as its usage. But then you look at the graph on the Google machine for the usage of virtuous, and that starts out in the 1800s, very high usage, and then plummets as time goes forward. I don't think that's not necessarily the most accurate thing, but I just thought it was weird that something that you think of as far as some sort of moral makeup, that declines as technology increases. What are your thoughts on that? I know that's kind of like a deep sort of...
That is, yeah.
Does technology make us more virtuous or less virtuous?
Well, judging by the graph, less, right? But,
well, right.
But we also don't know if
just,
there's correlation.
Yeah, that's just usage, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about... We use the word less, but does it make us more or less virtuous? I mean, it's about the person, I think.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the person, but I could see it being less virtuous, I guess, as people become more, I guess, similar to one another, which kind of, would coincide with virtual rising, like with social media and wanting to copy the latest trends or what have you.
Right.
Where you have virtuous being like your morals and your overall makeup of what makes you, how, I guess, how you act or whatever.
Right.
So I guess there could be a little bit of correlation there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Someone who has high moral, I guess, standards or whatever, would use whatever technology in the way that they were brought up. So I think there might be a correlation because there's more temptation with technology to utilize it in a way that brings benefit. So maybe that's the issue here with, like, let's look at social media. How many people out there would just go out in the middle of the street and yell their opinion at people before we had Twitter? No one, right? I mean, very little.
Yeah.
There are some people.
Yeah.
I think technology is more of a temptation as far as virtues are concerned. So what is the negative impact? I don't know. I think there might be a correlation, there might not be. But I just thought it was an interesting question.
Sure, yeah.
The application we're talking about is mostly computer oriented for you?
Sure, yeah. Okay. I would say so.
Have you ever used virtual reality kind of mechanisms or anything?
I have, yeah. I've done like the PlayStation VR.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've played
Is that the one that you need the move controllers for?
Yep. Two
Yeah.
of the move controllers. Pretty impressive that they were able to repurpose those because they were kind of not pointless, but they were kind of left alone.
Right.
They kind of didn't really care about them for years.
Yeah.
And then they figured out, oh, well, a lot of people own these. We could, find a way to repurpose them.
Yeah. They go back to the PlayStation 3 days?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I remember there was a game that I thought was really fascinating as far as kind of like a weird race game where I forget what it was called, but it was like you were on a chair and you were going down a hill and you would do all sorts of weird tricks, but it was like an office chair. It was like office chair races, but it was sort of like a weird kind of like race game involving dodging people and jumping on this office chair. Just sounds
Strange.
it's a really strange, obviously not to profile, but Japanese sort of game. But yeah, office chair races, downhill office chair races.
Well, I mean,
with tricks and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how else would you do it? As you're saying, the move controllers they repurposed for the use in virtual reality.
Yeah, I would say the PSVR, it's definitely a cool experience.
Yeah.
People that I've talked to that have played them are kind of on the fence. Some people really like it.
Right.
Some think it's a little gimmicky, that it's not a really, long-term thing that you would use.
Yeah.
I kind of fall somewhere in the middle on that. I didn't use mine a whole lot.
Okay.
Mostly because there's always like a cat in the way or wanting to mess with the wires. Also, setting it up was kind of a pain in the ass. And you also need like a defined space,
right?
Where you can fit it. So as it is right now, I would say, it's somewhere in the middle. I wouldn't call it a total gimmick, but maybe we're not all the way there yet.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to talk about virtual. I guess we can talk about the word virtual as it doesn't relate to video games, but it's really hard not to.
These days, for sure.
I think there are a lot of applications you would be able to use a virtual space for, but I think maybe my listener audience and maybe you and myself, most of our exposures to virtual sort of things are game specific.
Yeah. I mean, what about like a virtual machine? Like how you can run like Windows on your Mac.
Where I work, we've got certain virtual environments where it's not an actual server. It's actually mimicking what a server would look like and how the space it takes up. But yeah, virtual is an environment that is supposed to be nearly like Windows.
Right, yeah.
Or nearly like whatever system you mirror it to be, right? Do you use that in work? So what is it you do these days? You do programming, right?
Yeah, I am a software engineer, currently looking for work actually in that field. So I guess I can't officially say that. But that'd be like my field of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you ever used that? I mean, are those are environments that you write code to be used in, or is it a consideration? Like when you're writing code, like is this particular program that I write in, was it Python?
Sure. Yeah.
Or whatever language.
Yeah.
Where is it going to be used? In which environment is going to be used?
It's definitely a concern. Yeah, you have to know like what the machine is going to be. One of the languages I use a lot is Java, because Java actually has like the Java virtual machine, which allows it to be run on any machine. Okay. It actually runs on that. Yeah. And then it's converted into whatever machine-specific, bytecode you need at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that way you can develop your applications for, you don't even have to worry about what it's going to be run on. As long as they have Java, it can be run in the same way every time.
So this is where it gets confusing for me with Java. Java is the language, but isn't it also the part of the environment too?
Yeah, it's so there's like the Java development kit, and then in that you have the actual language, the runtime environment, the virtual machine, which is where your code is actually ran and executed.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the whole package development kit is referred to as Java, but there is like the Java language as well, which comes with it.
Now, what's the difference between Java and JavaScript?
Ooh, okay, so JavaScript is actually a scripting language that you use in your web browsers. So for when you're doing interweb stuff, JavaScript can be very powerful there. Whereas Java is actually a server-side language, and it's what's called object-oriented.
Yes.
So it's JavaScript, you can actually do object-oriented programming, but it's not really designed for it.
Yeah.
And there actually isn't really a whole lot of links between the two. It's mostly that JavaScript was trying to capitalize off of how popular Java was when it first was introduced.
Okay.
Yeah, so they pretty much just tacked the name on to kind of be like, go off of that name recognition, I guess.
So it's the same company? Is it a brand recognition sort of thing?
Yeah, so it wasn't at the time, actually. Nowadays, I think Oracle owns both.
I was going to say it's Oracle.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
But at the time, I think it was just they wanted to, there were so many different languages out there.
So
Java was really popular, so they were like, oh, well, this is JavaScript. You know,
but there are no similarities between the languages.
I mean, there are. They accomplish different things, and
they're focused on different tasks.
Right. Yeah. Like, because JavaScript, that's more of like on the web side, or like what the user is interacting with, whereas the server, like Java, is doing the behind the scenes stuff most of the time. Okay. And obviously, that's if you're just looking at it for web development. You could use Java for whatever applications, but yeah.
So Java is more, you can use it for more stuff, whereas JavaScript is basically just web.
For the most part. Recently, they actually have come out with like Node, which is like an extension of JavaScript, which allows you to run it as a server and do back-end type stuff.
Virtually as a server?
Pretty much. I would think so, yeah. I think we're onto something here. We're all tying it in. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting to me, but I'm not a code monkey, so the last language I learned was Fortran 77.
Oh.
And for my work, I also know mumps, which is a language. Just look it up, see what it is. But
mumps.
It's a hierarchical database. Like, as far as languages are concerned, there's a certain set of concepts that kind of are the same from language to language.
Sure.
One of the things you mentioned was object-oriented. Object-oriented, and my understanding of what that means is bits of code that are, or objects that are reusable within a script.
Yes.
Okay. Or not a script, but in your code. Right.
In a program, sure.
Now, that's the confusing thing with me when you're talking about object-oriented programming as opposed to just regular programming, is loops are used in multiple times and things, but those aren't objects.
Right.
Those are just coding loops. What makes an object beneficial as opposed to, so are we talking about I developed this object and then I can use it in multiple programs? Is that what the benefit is?
Yeah, that is one of the benefits. Like, say you're trying to represent basketball players.
Okay.
Right? Instead of trying to create multiple basketball players, like doing it all separately or whatever, you could create a basketball player object where it has attributes like height, weight, what their name is, and you can set those attributes based on, which player you're trying to create, let's say.
Right. That sounds like a template.
Right, and it's pretty similar. You create a class, essentially, that represents whatever you're trying to create, and then you can use that class to create the instances of the objects.
Okay.
So you would create a class called basketball player, let's say.
Right.
And then you would get your object by calling that class. It would like create, so to speak, like a blueprint.
Okay. So it's like, hey, give me a basketball player. So that was the class's basketball player, and then this object was what would be used to create the stats of the basketball player or create the basketball player?
Sort of. Like, so instead of saying like, well, I'm going to create, a basketball player, and well, they need to have a height and they need to have a weight, and do that for every single one, you would have this template, so to speak, that would allow you to set those variables so that they're all like uniform essentially, and then they can all be adjusted independently later.
Okay. But the main thing that makes an object useful is its utility as far as
reuse, for sure.
Reuse.
Yep.
Okay. And in cases where it wasn't that way, you didn't have objects and classes in older languages, you would just have to rewrite the code exactly the way it was, right?
Sure.
Is that that's my understanding. I just didn't.
It's a tough thing to try and think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm probably not doing the greatest job explaining either, but you can use them to represent real life things, and then you can use them to build on each other too.
Right.
You know, like for instance, you could have a basketball team, which is composed of basketball player objects, and the team itself could be an object.
As our own object
Right.
with its own. I'm slowly losing. My eyes are glazing over right now. And
Isn't
I know
this super exciting?
And I know that Nora's are probably closed, long closed. Some people just like coding.
Yeah.
And like solving those problems. And I did my fill and I'm done. I just don't. It's just not something that, I can do it in a pinch, but it's not something I am passionate about.
For sure. I do think there is a good overlap, though, from like objects like that and virtual, because a big part of it is trying to find ways to represent everyday objects or whatever you need to represent as code, So there is an overlap for sure.
Okay. So, but it's a logically, like, objects as they're programmed they can represent something brand new that's never been created, right?
Right.
But then how do you classify that to make it, I don't know. You know what? Let's not even go there. Let's go back to virtual.
Yeah.
Because I am starting to confuse myself with coding and objects. That was one of the things where it's like that, and also, do you know much about databases? Where you've got relational is what everyone uses, right?
Yeah,
relational
that's the big
database.
one now. There still is like non-relatable ones as well.
Yeah.
Like no SQL. That's like what that.
Oh,
if you've ever heard of that, or like MongoDB, stuff like that.
Is that all hierarchical? I mean, is that how it stores the data?
Oh, actually, I'm not too sure. I just know that it doesn't store them like necessarily as tables and relational.
Yeah. Because I know that hierarchical is just trees of data, right? It's just branches. So each branch can have another.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, so that would be the hierarchical database, as opposed to something where you store everything in tables and then you relate the like columns and all fascinating stuff.
It's fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. For some people.
Yeah.
You've got your home experience with virtual stuff. The wires is a big thing. As technology develops and advances, I think those things are going to go away. Like you've got you
already have like some models that are completely wireless.
Yeah,
for sure. Like
Oculus Quest.
Yeah, either the Quest or the Rift. I know.
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah, one of those.
I think it would be.
That's a huge part, having no wires, because nothing breaks the immersion factor more than tripping over or trying to make sure you're not going to trip over or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think they have to figure that out, and I think the other part of it is movement, and they've kind of. There's some of it that they figured out in the sense of like teleporting, because, if you have movement in VR, a lot of people get nauseous.
Right.
And they get motion sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Teleporting kind of alleviates that, but then you're also breaking a little bit of the immersion factor.
Right.
It's like, if I want to go over to the other side of the street, I want to be able to walk over there, if I'm playing like a virtual GTA, let's say.
Right.
I don't want to, I just all of a sudden, whoop, I'm over there.
Right.
That's not as fun or whatever.
People get motion sick when they're not moving their legs, but they're moving in the environment.
Yeah.
I had that. My friend brought over, I want to say the Oculus Quest, but one of the standalone ones. And I played a game that was, you were on a roller coaster, and it was part roller coaster and part shooting game. So you were shooting targets as you were on this roller coaster.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. I actually did get, not nauseous, but it was like, I felt like I was moving when I wasn't moving, so I would lose my balance.
Yeah.
And all I needed to do was like say, hey, can you just hold on to my leg? Just put your hand on my leg, and then I was fine. Because it was like there was something that they may not have been holding me at all, but just that sensory input was enough to
like ground you a little.
Yeah. Whereas if you put something on your head and you're holding something, those are things that we always feel.
Yes.
But something like on my leg, has a stabilized, it's not something that normally happens, right? So it's like I've kind of got a different association with that.
Sure.
So I was perfectly fine. Once she just touched my leg, I was good, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
There's also, you were talking about the disorienting nature, right?
Yes.
Have you ever had that?
A little bit, not in the sense of like, I mean, I've gotten nauseous from playing, and I would have to like take a break or whatever. I get like sweaty or hot feeling.
Right.
But another one that I had, especially when I first started doing VR like extensively, like I'm not even talking like hours, but like maybe an hour and a half at a time.
All right.
When I would end that session and like take off the headset and everything,
Uh-huh.
it didn't like feel like I was in VR still, but it almost did. For instance, if I wanted to pick up the remote, it would feel like my character's reaching out to grab the remote,
wow.
not so much me. Because, when you're in the game, as opposed to when you're playing like, on a flat screen TV, you're just holding a controller doing whatever. It's easy to have that separation of, oh, it's not actually me doing this or whatever.
Right.
But when you're actually in VR and it's like, pick up the pistol or whatever you have to do, you have to actually reach out and pick it up.
Right.
You're actually involving your limbs more.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I took it off, it was like, it's not like I was like, oh, I'm still in there or something, but I reach out to get my drink, and it like has that same feel as when I'm in the game, kind of. Obviously not picking up the glass, but like just that overall action or whatever. It started feeling more, I guess, simulated. Not that I was actually convinced that I'm like, oh, I'm not actually doing this, but
you're in the Matrix.
Yeah, it did have a little like, I don't know, weird feel to it.
Yeah.
Not,
Do you think that's going to be the big hurdle when we all start doing virtual reality is the disconnect? I mean, getting out of it, because they do. I did see the movie. You've seen the movie, The Matrix movies.
Yeah.
The Wachowskis have done, what, 4 of them now?
Yeah.
And I did actually watch the Resurrections one recently. We'll talk about that a little later, though. Do you think that's, they have that when you disconnect, there's going to be this sort of sensory overload kind of readjustment period, depending on how long you've been in there?
I think so, definitely. Because I'm telling you, it was only like an hour or two, but like when I came out, it was weird. And I Googled it because I was like, I wonder if this is just me being like,
right,
myself about it. No, like a lot of people have reported having this feeling
Yeah.
of feeling like you're more or less still, not like still in VR, but kind of like you have that same feel when you're doing stuff.
Is it sort of like an out-of-body experience?
Kinda, yeah. Because like, when you're in a game and you're first person, you can look down, see your hand, whatever it is.
Right.
And, you see your guy reach out and grab something. And then, it does feel like, I guess, kind of dissociative or however you would say it, where, it's like, that's me doing it, but it's like, it just feels different.
Yeah. I have had things where the visual display, I've gotten sick because the visual display twitches.
Oh, okay.
So there have been reasons why I've gotten sick, but that's the only time I've felt nauseous in VR is when there's some sort of glitch where, whatever the mechanism is making the screen do things that you wouldn't normally have it do.
Sure. I could see that being. Yeah.
And that was on one particular paid simulation I did that I was really annoyed that I paid so much for. There was another game, this company based out of Chicago that's called, well, I don't know what the main company is, but the place that you go is called Mass VR. It's basically a very large play area. Like, think of a mall. You go to the mall, you go to the JCPenney's. In the case of this mall, it was double-decker. Like that much space where you are free to walk around and investigate that large of a space in virtual reality. So it doesn't feel like you're in a tiny room. Like
Sure.
what you said with being in your living room or even just like a much larger box. It was much larger. So you were walking around like normal with this headset on. Mass VR, my friend Corey introduced me to it. They've got a couple of different games you can play there. One which is called Hollow Realm, which is a ghosts versus humans kind of game where the ghosts can only be seen when they're moving, and you as a human can shoot the ghost, like when you see them, kill them or whatever. But the ghosts have a different task, which is they try and eliminate the ghost hunters. All they have to do is just stand still, touch them to eliminate them. But they can also float, and they can float up to the ceiling and things like that. But then also your humans have different mechanisms that they can use, but they have limited charges, and it's a fun little game, but it's a much larger sort of environment. And it feels like you're just walking around in an environment, right? Because you have that space to walk. There's another game, I forget what it's called, but it's just basically like a deathmatch sort of game, right? Where you run around and you shoot, and you can pick up different guns. You just kind of swipe, and then on your little gun that you have, you can choose which weapon you equip. So it's basically like Unreal Tournament in a virtual environment. One of the things that you can do in that game is zip lines. So that's the only thing that's the tricky part as far as motion.
Yeah.
When you get on a zip line, all you have to do is reach up, but it just feels really weird.
Right. Because
what I do is I put one of my knees behind my other knee to stabilize myself before I reach up. That way I don't, fall over.
Yeah.
And then also it's an interesting sort of computer problem as far as if you're displaced in the virtual, you're not displaced in the real environment, but you're displaced in the virtual environment. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So how do you're keeping track of where people are in the virtual environment, but that differs from the real environment. So when you come into contact with someone like in the physical world, you'll see a little outline saying, oh, avoid this person. And there are multiple levels too. It's not like it's just a flat surface, right? So that can mean someone's right below you, but typically that's not what it means because they're displaced because they use the zip line, so they're somewhere else. But right, it's really interesting and a lot of fun. I didn't think I was going to have so much fun with it, but it's really cool. It's like laser tag, but like with different weapons.
And see, that's what I was thinking. Like, that sounds really fun, but it's like, it sounds like laser tag or like going to an amusement park in the sense that it's once every now and then kind of.
Yeah.
So I am curious to see like what the future is as far as like everyday use or like, from your own home.
Right.
There's the idea of maybe having like I think I've seen like a prototype of this actually, like a treadmill type thing that allows you to move your feet or whatever, and it can adjust in the direction you're going.
Right.
That way you actually can run around and not get that disconnect or whatever.
Right.
I think that has potential if they could figure out how to do that. And, obviously it's going to be really costly though. That's the biggest thing.
You can have other industries investigate that thing because there would also be like something like that as a treadmill oriented thing that can also be used for exercise, but then also your environment while you're doing your exercise.
Yeah.
Can be virtual.
There's definitely the possibility for some like crossover there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And
then you already have like Peloton and whatever being like the virtual biking, so there is like an extension there, I think.
Yeah. When you talk about virtual reality, what do you think of as virtual reality as opposed to just something that is a simulator? I know there's an overlap there, but it's like when you get into a pod, for example, and you've got like a lot of different controls and things, is that virtual?
Maybe not by the generally accepted definition of virtual reality.
Exactly.
But I think you could definitely stretch it to be that in the sense that it's something that's not necessarily real. Like in this case, it's tangible. Like if you're talking about like a flight sim or whatever.
Right.
But it's not actually a plane cockpit. It's still trying to, just imitate it.
Right.
So in that sense, it's giving you that chance of having that experience without actually doing it.
Right.
But, there is the physicalness of it. So
yeah, it's nearly reality, I guess, just insofar as it's a simulator. But I mean, if you were in an actual robot, for example, like a Battletech robot maybe, and you get in there, you would be in a cockpit that's like that. So technically, it is virtual?
I think as far as the actual...
It's a semantic argument,
It is,
right?
it is. I think in general, I guess it would be what your eyes see.
Right.
I guess, like as far as the cutoff of what VR is versus simulation. Because, if you're playing like I'm really big into iRacing. I think we talked about
we
on
talked
one of
about
the
that
other
on
episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't use my PlayStation VR with that because it's not compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So I just use the screen. So for me, that's like just simulation, right? Because it's, there's no actual, like the whole time I know I'm in my living room or whatever. But there are a lot of people that do throw on VR like headsets and still use the steering wheel or whatever.
Right.
And that is VR, definitely.
Did you say you did that with the Star Wars?
I did, yeah. I've done VR with Star Wars.
Squadrons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Did that give you a level of immersion that made it more fun, or was it more distracting, or
a bit of both? I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not using in that sense. Actually, I think you do use the controller in Squadrons. It was No Man's Sky that I'm thinking of. No Man's Sky, you actually fly with like your PlayStation Move controllers. You actually grab like the flight controls on the ship and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which that's really cool, but it makes it tougher for sure. Because like you have to think about what you're actually doing with the sticks and whatever, not just using your analog sticks.
Right. Why don't they have a glove?
Why don't they have a power glove?
Well, not like the power glove, because the power glove was just a controller.
Yeah.
Mounted on your wrist. It wasn't really, you weren't really doing much virtually with it.
I think gloves are where it's going to go.
You think?
Yeah, once they have better maybe detection. I'm not sure what's holding it back, but because then you would have a more accurate, like what you're doing with your hands.
Yeah.
You could actually, grab something, but not just press a button. That would be much more immersive, I would think.
And then with haptics, it would feel like you're actually holding the object as opposed to that kind of technology is slowly advancing in gaming. I would think that would have to exist in other fields currently somehow, like like maybe medical or like prosthetics or things like where you can tap into those types of real world things. What do you think virtual reality has to contribute to other things that are not gaming? Because like travel is one of those things, but you can gamify travel.
Travel would definitely be one. I actually think sporting events has a big possibility. They actually already have introduced this.
ESPN does have an NBA, right?
For VR, where you can actually like sit courtside and you're in the arena.
Right.
Now, I haven't done it. I've always wanted to, but it wasn't supported, I don't think, on PSVR, or at least I couldn't figure it out. It was some other third-party app or something. But I think that is awesome. Yeah. Like the ability to do that. Even if it's not the same high def, like as if you're watching it on TV. The ability to actually be in the arena, to like look around up above you and see people or whatever, that could be really cool.
Yeah.
And to give people that maybe don't really have the ability to go to games, like maybe a fan that's living in Australia of the Phoenix Suns.
Right.
I actually follow multiple on Twitter,
where
they're big Suns fans on the other side of the world. They could definitely, put on their headset and be inside the Suns arena. I mean, how cool could that be?
That would be cool. But then at some point, people would stop going to games, right?
See,
people would start, then you have to simulate the crowds and then things.
I don't know if we'll ever reach that, though.
You don't think so?
I think maybe, but it would be a ways off. You would have to make it to where there's literally no, advantage really to going to the games. And even now, your overall viewing experience is better at home, even on a TV, than going to a game. Most of the time you go to a game, you can hardly see, depending on where you're seated. I think that there's always going to be that appeal to actually being there, to being able to say, oh yeah, I was actually there.
See, I disagree with you on that. I think it's so much better going to a game than it is watching on television.
And see, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
The experience is better.
Okay.
And, it is... I'm just saying purely on a view standpoint. When you're watching on TV, you get right up in the pitcher's face if it's baseball.
Yeah.
If there's a hit, you see the instant replay in slow-mo, 4K HD. just from your couch. You can go use the bathroom. It's not a big trough with like 20 dudes lined up at it. There's a lot of advantages viewing wise at the house.
I was thinking of putting in a trough in my apartment, a big 20-person trough.
Well, maybe you could just get a VR headset and maybe there'll be like
I could simulate it.
Urine simulator.
Exactly. Oh, Jesus. Someone's working on it. I know someone is.
I agree. Like actually being at the event has that appeal.
Right.
Like even if you don't have the best seats, the
Right.
fact that you're there, you could talk with the people around you,
Yeah,
whatever, get
interact
the
with
food,
them.
have a beer.
Yeah.
That's always going to have that appeal, I think. And even if it, if anything, you'll see the prices drop before like people just aren't there. Because even if they're like, okay, well, if we can't charge, $200 for a courtside seat, how about $100? Now somebody's, okay, I'll take it. And obviously those prices are way off, but just for example.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You can adjust the price of things, but having the option to do it virtually is I think a novelty at first. And
Yeah.
I know specifically what you're talking about with that NBA, because I saw I think I talked about this on a previous show, but the NBA has an augmented reality sort of app that allows you to experience a very small segment of that. It's filming all 360 degrees, but it's a warm-up. So like the Chicago Bulls warming up before a game or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What you do is you set down a door. It's augmented reality. It's not virtual, right? You sit down a door somewhere in the real environment, and then you walk through that door, and then you can hear the sounds of the arena through the device, and then also look around and see what everyone's doing and walk around it a little bit. That's really cool. But how far are we away from being able to walk in an environment like that and have it captured on video? I think we're pretty far away.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because there's only so much that you can simulate. I think something watching a game from a seat, everyone's in the same seat watching the same game. But the moving around part, I think that's the part that's going to be tough to simulate.
Yeah.
Like you said, going to the bathroom and using the trough.
Yeah. I need the full immersion experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Or another one that's interesting is movies. And that's something that's already on like PSVR. But they'll actually like essentially give you a theater to sit in.
Okay.
So you're actually like at the movies, so to speak, and there's like a giant screen, because they can make it pretty much as big as you would want. So I do think there's like a little bit of application there as well.
What about filming movies?
Like
virtual reality
in VR?
Yeah.
That that's actually a good point, because they already even did that Hardcore Henry that came out like I think it was like 7 years ago, and it was a movie that was like entirely in first person.
Okay.
It was like a kind of like Call of Duty. Like it was like some guy who was doing like a first person shooter, but it was like a movie.
Okay.
So that's already kind of in that direction. I could see them like making an entire movie like that for VR, where you just throw on your headset and you're in it. And actually, or I don't know if you want to add something there.
Oh, I was going to say, but that's not experiencing the movie from whatever angle you want to. See, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
I see what you're saying.
So like, filming the movie. Yeah, I understand that, where you're experiencing the movie from the perspective of whoever the character is. That's kind of interesting, and then you can look around at stuff that they can't
but you're
show
saying
you.
like
Actual like experiencing. So I like walk over here, and I could miss a scene over there.
Yes, that's cool. That's okay. I hadn't even thought about that. But
Yeah.
Like I could actually like walk around Shrek's swamp.
Right.
While he's being
right. And you get some sort of notification of something happening over in wherever, where there's like a key scene or whatever, if you want to check it out.
Yeah.
But then you can also have like Easter egg opportunities where there are things that are hidden in certain areas, and you could rewind it.
Or maybe you could find like other characters doing something.
Yeah, that has to do with the story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I think that would be gamifying movies to a point where some people would not be that invested into it, but your fanboys would.
I think there's an idea there, because then look at like the Black Mirror movie, the Bandersnatch.
Yeah,
that was like an interactive movie as well, and people loved that. It was like super talked about, and and it was the same kind of thing of like, well, you're not really playing a game, but you're able to make choices,
right?
and in this case, it would kind of be similar. Like you could move around or choose which area you want to watch, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there'd be more freedom, right?
Yeah.
It would still be a closed environment as far as where everything was filmed, but the freedom to walk around the environment.
What about like TV shows that way? I mean, I know that's really similar to movies, but
Yeah.
but the sense of it being like,
You think like episodic things would,
Yes.
would lend itself more to that kind of thing because of movies have
or maybe
much
not more,
more.
but just differently. Yeah, because a movie is more linear, I guess. But with
Movies also, they're different environments, right? You go from Bangladesh to France
Sure.
to different places in the U.S., whereas a television show, generally, that's changing, but it's like it takes place in a smaller sort of environment.
No, yeah, and I think like as far as like the community aspect, everybody wanting to talk about it, trying to figure out what the secret is or whatever, depending on what the show is.
Right.
Like when Game of Thrones was really big, like everybody was talking about the different theories of who the parents are or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think like what you're saying could definitely be a big part of that, like the ability to like investigate different areas of the map, so to speak, to see.
Like I heard this conversation while I was over here at time code, blah, 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 blah,
And then
blah,
everybody goes over there and checks it out. Or whatever. Yeah. I think there's definitely a spot for that.
Do you think using VR, I have this feeling it's more for entertainment, and that's where it's going to stay for quite some time. I mean, I see VR being used for simulating sort of situations that you wouldn't necessarily want to find yourself in, but I don't know if we have the computing power to simulate things with such accuracy, like like a holodeck or something, like a Star Trek thing.
I'm almost wondering like if it could be used for like investigations too, like criminal investigations or something. Recreate a crime scene,
right?
And actually be able to like walk around and mess with stuff without actually affecting the evidence or whatever.
Yeah. Also, like if everything's being filmed, like it's becoming more and more in life.
True. Yeah.
Not to derail this conversation, but I saw, and I don't know how long it stayed up, but it was one of these alerts through like MSNBC or so. It was a local alert. Told me about a crime where someone had been shot at a group of people. And it actually showed footage of this guy walking out from behind a building, and you see him hold a gun and shoot just randomly at something. Mm-hmm. And then go behind the building and run behind the building, and then the police officers were there. But it's like, if that's being filmed, what else is being? I don't want to get all.
Oh, that could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
cameras,
cameras,
filming,
definitely.
A big part of it too is like it's so hard to predict, like you said.
Right.
I was watching
the future. You mean?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And obviously, right. Great point, Paul. But no, but I was watching like an old video of Letterman where Bill Gates is on it, and he's talking about computers. And this is like before the big burst of like .com boom and everything.
Right.
And even when Letterman asks him like, so what's the future of computers? Like he has no idea. Oh, well, it could. We're still trying to find, what all the uses could be. And, you could be using this to check your mail, and you could use it to do your work. It's just such a small vision of what it ended up being. Like he's seeing it as like a way to complete work tasks, essentially.
Right. Is he saying that because he's trying to appeal to masses?
Even just like the social media aspect, how it's like everyone has their phone or whatever. Obviously, that's a type of computer, and nobody saw that explosion, which now, like, it seems obvious. Of course, people want to stay in touch and post all about themselves online.
As far as him specifically, I don't think he had the vision. I think he had the drive more than the vision. Who had the vision was
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
He was the one who had the creative mind as far as all these different things. If we're talking about it in the like systems universe, like your Sony and your Microsoft are Microsoft. Duh. Your Apple was like Nintendo.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
They try and, envision these
they
weird.
Think differently.
They do actually. Is that one of their taglines?
Yeah. Think different.
Yeah, and that's not proper English. I think it's think differently, but whatever. Think different.
Maybe it is think differently. I don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe you should think differently and make it think different.
Perhaps.
I'm reading too much into it.
It's unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, the people that are the creatives, I think, have a part to play in this because they can determine the direction in a way that your more analytical folks, oh yeah, that's good. Let's do that, but better.
Yeah.
That seemed to be his MO, right?
Sure.
Whereas Steve Jobs, I mean, this is not, you need them both in this environment to kind of figure out. And then also media has a big part to play in it too. The hoverboard. Would we be talking about people wanting to make a hoverboard if it wasn't for Back to the Future? Probably not. I don't think people wanted a hoverboard before that. I don't know. Did you want a hoverboard?
Well, I don't know. There wasn't a before that for me,
Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, but
it's
I mean,
been planted in me.
It's like, yeah, it's a skateboard without wheels. It's just magnets or whatever. You've got people who create the future in their head, and then other people go, yeah, that's a great idea. But then they're your truly visionary people who create something that's wholly unique.
Yeah.
And that's where I think virtual reality, what it's used for currently is mimicking situations that we know day to day.
Sure.
Instead of something like I showed you the trailer for the 1966 movie Fantastic Voyage, which you should see the trailer because they are really dramatic about how new and unique they are in that movie.
Groundbreaking stuff.
Groundbreaking, yes.
Never been done before.
Right. First time ever.
Yeah.
Some people go to space, some people go to various, other exotic locations, but we go into the human body. Yeah. And I think that would be an interesting sort of place to take virtual reality as places where we can't go. But there's also something where creating things, I mean, I guess anything we create would be based on reality anyway. Like how would you talk about rules or laws when we were talking about this with Aunt Nora. You could set up your environment however you wanted to set it up. So you could have whatever laws of nature and physics.
Sure.
But I think what people want to experience is something close to reality. What will make virtual reality more viable in the future? Is it the fact that it can mimic things that are that are situations in real life? Or is it something where it's an exploration thing that you don't know what you're going to find? It's a mystery.
Yeah. I guess it would probably depend on the person. I think there is a place for both.
Right.
Because, the exploration side of it sounds awesome. The ability to maybe go to a world that, doesn't exist or whatever. Like go to Star Wars and be on Hoth or something.
But that's still based in...
yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. Yeah,
that's not like something where I'm going to become a gas molecule.
I see it, yeah.
In the sun or whatever, or
sun simulator.
And even that's based on reality and science a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's like a wholly unique thing that we can say that you've never done this. But I mean, doing a virtual reality tour through a human body would be pretty interesting.
I think, bringing up the human body like that, I think there's like the application of it being used for education, definitely.
Yeah.
And not even just like higher level, but even just teaching kids. Like kids have such short attention spans. If you could somehow work VR and like make it interactive where they're actually, it's not the Magic School Bus where they're watching it on a little TV, but they're actually in a Magic School Bus, like flying through a body.
Right.
That could be huge for a kid, like actually remembering stuff and like having that interaction.
Yeah, more of a kinesthetic sort of experience as opposed to visual or auditory only or whatever.
And I mean, you could even like thinking about it, not I have this great idea, but like you could even get rid of the whole like distractions that are caused in the classroom with that.
Oh yeah,
because you could turn off people's ability to speak, so to speak.
Yikes!
Well, I know that sounds kind of dystopian, but like in a classroom setting,
I've got a couple of people on my list. I wish I could turn them off as far as
but like,
when they speak.
You could just have your whole class, so to speak, be in this virtual setting
Right.
where they have no ability to communicate with each other. And you could even, if you wanted to be really controlling, be like, you have to look where we're telling you to look or whatever.
Then you could also turn off another on and off other pairings. Like if you pair up with someone, right, you can turn on the pairing between Jimmy and Timmy, and they can explore together, and that's beneficial. Or you could have it as a group thing, or you can. I think it does. You're right. I think virtual reality does have a wonderful opportunity in education. The only problem is it's education.
Yeah.
And we as a society have made it abundantly clear that we value that far less as we develop.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, right?
Sure.
And I think that's the problem is you can't develop something for education without the money, and what sells entertainment and games and things like that. Whereas,
that's a good point. Yep.
Education, it could be valuable for someone who's a visionary, but it's not going to sell, so no one's going to invest in it.
It is interesting, though. In that case, we don't know, because VR itself could take off.
Right.
And then it could just be like a branch off of that. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be we're investing in education in VR. It could just be VR itself takes off, and then people have access to it.
Right.
Like, think about cell phones.
Yeah.
Cell phones are actually used in classrooms a lot now, where you can actually, you could do polls or whatever, and they're not supplying the kids with cell phones. They just happen to have them already.
Right.
I don't, who knows, maybe 20, 30 years or even longer, take a scale 200 years.
Right.
Could we have a little thing that's the size of a Tic Tac that you just stick, like in Black Mirror, where you just stick it to your temple, and then all of a sudden it's like you're in. And that could be something where it's not school supplied. It's just part of that student's world anyway.
Then we've got all sorts of things, though, as far as we're still learning what virtual reality does to the human body.
That too.
For prolonged exposure. And I think there are a lot of very...
So maybe not an all-day thing, but...
Yeah, I think,
But like field trips.
Right.
Today we're going to take a field trip inside the human body. Bam,
yeah.
There you go.
And you can do it from anywhere. You don't have to rent a school bus or whatever.
Yeah, or like we're going to go to the Natural History Museum or whatever, and it's all virtual.
Yeah. There's a lot of things also with travel, I think, that could be useful. But I just don't think that virtual reality will really take off until, I say this, until all of the senses are involved somehow. Being able to eat the popcorn at a basketball game, or eat a hot dog.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, trick the brain into thinking that you're doing it.
Yep.
But that's dangerous territory
also. That is dangerous territory, because then
it's very Black Mirror.
Yes.
That's
and it's part of that, how much access do you give to, to be able to do that, you would have to give up a lot of access. You'd have to probably give a direct pipeline to your brain, I would assume. I don't know how else you would do it. Unless it's like you get knocked out and it's transmitted, I don't know.
I've talked about this movie on the show. I just love the movie. It connected with me somehow. It's called Brainstorm. And the movie Brainstorm, it's Natalie Wood's last movie. She died during the making of it. It almost didn't get made. The movie itself involves death, and there's all sorts of like second gunman theories around what happened there. But Christopher Walken is the main lead. It is about this piece of technology that he and a scientist are working on for a company that's being funded, of course, surprise, surprise, by the government, where you can record experiences and brain patterns on a tape and then play that tape back for someone, and they will experience the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything that person who recorded it felt. And there are a bunch of little cautionary things that are throughout it. Like there's one sequence where this guy recorded him having sex with someone, and so it's like, oh, everyone's checking out this tape. You find out later that there's an emergency at this guy's house who got the tape. He looped it over and over again, the orgasm or whatever, the pleasure. He just, instead of doing the whole experience, just do the orgasm over and over and over again. And then he starts saying things that are pretty whacked out, like, I'm different than I was.
Oh, okay.
And things that are weird.
Yeah.
And then there's also the main part of the movie also is about this woman has a heart attack in the lab while she's by herself and records herself dying.
Oh, that's interesting.
On the tape. And the Christopher Walken character for the rest of the movie after that happens is infatuated with trying to play that tape and experience death without it actually
happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, there's the government involved because they want to use it for brainwashing activities, of course. And,
naturally.
All these different things that are very much about virtual reality also. It's not just this thing where you record it on a tape and you play it back and your brain waves make you think that things are happening. But in an environment like that, right, it's going to be that way. And you're going to think that maybe even feel remorse when you kill someone in a virtual environment in a game. Or you're like, well, how is that going to desensitize us as human beings? I mean, would it, what do you think? Isn't that going to, the more realistic we get, isn't that something that's going to disassociate us from reality?
Yes, I think so. You already have people that
disassociate
now. Just like from spending expended time, online, or even it doesn't even have to be VR.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that, especially if you're like playing somebody else, like in the VR or in the metaverse, like you have your own avatar that's maybe different or behaves differently than you would in normal life. I could definitely see that.
Well, then at some point those things will overlap. I mean, if you spend
at what point do you become your character, so to
become
speak?
your avatar,
or
right?
like
Does your
assume
avatar
that identity,
right?
Yeah. Or does your avatar's identity become more popular, like to where people know you as that?
Right.
Like you're not even Paul,
like an actor,
you're,
right? Like an actor walking down the street and you go, "Hey, it's
Stinky Weasel 2312 or whatever."
Yeah. Stinky Weasel. Did you consider Stinky Weasel 2312 as one of your?
I think that was the best my brain could do for one of those generated usernames.
Yeah.
Stinky Weasel.
Yeah, Stinky Weasel.
It's probably better than anything I've actually ever come up with.
I actually saw Butt Tickler 87 once. And I thought, I don't want to play with that guy anymore. But let's not talk about that.
It's impossible to be mad if you're getting killed by Butt Tickler, though.
Oh, no. My whole thing was, I'm not getting killed by Butt Tickler. Screw that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get killed by that guy. But anyway, that 12-year-old or whoever came up with that name.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go on forever on this whole sort of thinking about how virtual reality will evolve. Do you have any final thoughts on what you think virtual reality is going to become?
I think it's going to be something big for sure.
Yeah.
I think we've had like the tip of the iceberg. Like this is kind of a test drive where we're at, and it's not even close to how things will eventually be. If you even think just back to like 20 years ago, what video games were like and what they're like now, it's a jarring leap.
Right.
And I don't see why VR would be any different, as we understand it more, and the computing power and everything, the possibilities.
And the impacts on the human being who uses it.
And that as well, and positive or negative.
Right.
And will it matter? Even if we acknowledge that, okay, it's probably a net negative impact, let's say hypothetically, will it make a difference, or will it still be running rampant? Because I think most people in general say that social media is overall a bad thing because of the comparisons it forces you to make and what have you.
Or accepting information immediately without having the ability fact checking.
Right. And despite all of that, a lot of the majority of the population uses one form or another of social media. So, will it even matter if we're like, well, this is causing disassociation and people are, I don't know, becoming more depressed or anxious or whatever.
Yeah.
Will it make a difference, or will we just be like, well, it's just a side effect of VR. This is the world nowadays.
Yeah.
Get with it, old man.
I mean, I'm mixed about what the virtual reality holds. As far as games, it's a novelty, and if it is used in a creative way, I will partake and try and play it. Like I still want to play that. What is the Half-Life Alyx? If I ever have the opportunity to play that game. I've heard wonderful things about it, but it's a game, right?
Yeah.
And so, when virtual reality becomes a lifestyle more than just a game, that's when I think it's going to get it could get interesting. It could also get very scary, very Matrix-ish.
Yep.
Very much like that, kind of like we're just a bunch of people in a bunch of pods to conserve space and keep the power on for the computers that are going to simulate us.
Right. And, I'd see that being a possibility. Sure.
Oh, Jesus.
Right now you already have like freemium games. I know this is like kind of a segue, but like you have games already where people invest their real resources
to
improve their standing in the game, right?
Right. Pay to win.
Or pay to win, sure. So, I don't see why it wouldn't happen the same way with VR too. Like if people become obsessed enough with their virtual life, they'll just be starting to dump all of their real resources, whether it be time or money or whatever, into that.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe $10,000 can get you a better location of your house in the metaverse or whatever.
Yeah, but that's not going to, and then the rich going to keep on getting richer and the poor are going to keep on getting poorer, and that's just like, it's just going to be
It'll just be a new avenue.
It's just going to be a carbon copy.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't think someone in the metaverse is going to say, okay, so everyone is equal. Everyone starts out exactly the same.
No.
You all have to figure it out.
It'll be interesting though. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the onset of it. It could be like down the road. They slowly introduce these things where it's like you pay a little bit of real money and you get, I don't know what it would be, but something in there that benefits you, and then it just becomes a larger and larger part of VR or the metaverse, whatever.
Yeah, it's just gonna. I have a feeling it's just gonna become kind of like social media. It's gonna be more an amplified version of the things that are wrong with us.
Yeah.
Call me pessimistic, but
there's a large possibility.
It's possible. I think if we do it right. But when have we ever done anything? Anyway, I'm not going to get down on humans because, virtual reality is really cool when it comes to games.
Yes.
Let me just say.
If you look at it, too, just from very, very big picture macro level, it's pretty cool that like we as humans can just like create a virtual world and be like, let's go in here and explore it.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's the negatives, but there is a lot of cool things going on, too.
And I think the question about how artificial intelligence is going to develop in that kind of environment is also kind of scary, too. It's also a la Matrix, but it's just, I saw the Matrix Resurrections yesterday, so I think that's coloring my viewpoint about negativity. On that note, let's close out the show. Thank you, Paul, for joining us on this episode on the word virtual.
Yeah, it's been a great time.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually here. This wasn't like a Zoom or anything. It's not.
No, it wasn't virtual. It was actual real reality.
Actually here in the same room. 2022.
Yes.
Making it happen.
Making it happen. Playing with the cats.
Yep.
So, thank you for joining us. My name is Ben.
And I'm Paul still.
Now you're Steve. And we've been your hosts. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.
Bye.